Over the past month or so, we've been learning all about the Intel vPro platform for IT professionals to help them become IT heroes for their organization. Computers with the Intel vPro badge, that little sticker, verifies it ticks all the boxes when it comes to performance and stability, manageability, which includes smart remote access that we looked at the other week, and security, 4 key pillars, if you will. And today's discussion is going to focus more on the last one, security. Joining us on the line to chat is Matthew Harrison, Technical Solution Specialist for Enterprise PC for the Western US market at Intel. Thanks for your time, Matt. Good to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Happy to be here and happy to go into a vPro security a little deeper here with you.
Yeah, perfect. Why don't we start off, though, with a bit of a vPro 101? Before we talk about, I think, Intel's Security First pledge, talk to us at a high level about this vPro platform.
Yeah, so vPro is a recipe beginning with the processors, but also including the connectivity, the chipset, including the graphics that are Intel elements that we can control that allow us to more deeply innovate on the 4 pillars of vPro being performance, stability, security, and manageability.
Yeah, so I know a lot of our listeners have laptops and desktops powered by Intel. The processor or CPU is the engine that drives the performance of the PC, but we're going to focus on the vPro platform designed for businesses, and security is one of the top pillars, as we mentioned, of Intel vPro, along with performance and manageability and stability. So with that in mind, Matt, let's dive deeper into security. But before that, is vPro, just to confirm, because I know your title is for Enterprise PC, that's obviously larger companies, but is vPro also relevant for small and medium-sized businesses?
It is, yeah. So what we're now calling vPro Enterprise has actually been around for 15 years. And just this year, we decided to come out with vPro Essentials. Now that's differentiated on each of those 4 pillars just slightly.
So without further ado, let's talk about this multi-layer security approach by Intel.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are so many, we have to talk in categories. So the entire category is known as hardware shield. So there is below the OS security, dealing with that time where you may see the splash screen of your equipment provider, application and data protection, which has to do with the virtualization layer. If you're running multiple OSs, protecting that either for security or other reasons. And then there's advanced threat protection, protecting the system when the OS is actually up and running.
Okay, good to know. And in previous interviews about Intel vPro, I understand some of the security features, they are baked into the hardware itself.
It is, yeah. Kind of in contrast with some of the manageability, you really don't have to do much of anything to get that. Just need to spec the vPro system. We are going to talk about threat detection technology, and there are some ecosystem pieces that kind of fit in best with that. So maybe there's a little bit of a selection process there, but other than that, it's really out of the box functionality.
Yeah, we'll talk about that shortly. It's called Intel TDT, right? Threat detection
Correct.
technology. But there is this security layer on the hardware itself, which I know gives a lot of folks peace of mind when they decide to purchase Intel vPro enabled computers. We are chatting with Matt Harrison. He's Technical Solution Specialist for Enterprise PC for the Western US at Intel. We're learning all about the Intel vPro platform and why it's ideal for Canadian businesses, big or small, but they do focus a lot on enterprise, as we've heard. So can you talk to us about some of these hardware-based features?
Yeah, absolutely. So we like to talk about, because there are so many, we actually group things in this topic of hardware shield. So many of our OEMs have their own shields.
And OEMs are your partners like Dell or HP or...
Correct.
Yeah, those are your computer company partners.
Yep, yeah. Original equipment manufacturers. So the 3 categories beneath hardware shield are below the OS security. And again, think of that time before the operating system actually comes up. People see that splash screen and whatnot. Maybe they've actually seen that at one point in time and have to navigate through their keyboard and whatnot. Right. Application and data protection, which has to do with the virtualization layer. And then this advanced threat protection, which is actually while the operating system is running, hey, is there anything we can do to protect against attacks that may be surfacing?
And how should customers, Matthew, how should businesses out there compare security solutions that are available to them?
Yeah, so it's tough because everybody wants to claim, hey, we're the industry leading security expert. Our legal team has asked us to prove out that most comprehensive security platform statement. And we went out and surveyed, how do people gauge their security security solutions. And there is a attack methodology called MITRE ATT&CK, and there are about 285 different attack vectors on that. It turns out that the vPro platform has countermeasures against 47 of those. And that's a good methodology to actually just go down that list and say, hey, how are we protected?
I heard a stat last week that 90-something% of Canadian CEOs were most concerned about cybersecurity in 2022 and 2023. That was like their number one concern. So no doubt this is an important discussion today. And what about security tied to the TDT that we talked about, Intel Threat Detection Technology?
Yeah, I love this one because I've been around Intel for a while and we love to test our own stuff, all these performance testing methodologies and whatnot. And we've actually gone back and built this massive library or database of what is normal CPU performance. And we can actually contrast normal CPU performance against abnormal. And we do this in a couple different ways, but it turns out we can actually do a pretty good job of detecting what does a crypto mining attack look like? What does a ransomware attack look like? And then there's some more things on the horizon, like a supply chain type attack. And it's a very visual mapping of what is that normal, what is the interrelationships. This is something that is pretty CPU intensive, and it's back to that performance comment I made earlier. By itself, people might turn down this analysis.
Yeah, you don't want it to infect performance.
Yeah, we actually shift this to the graphics engine in the last couple of generations, and that actually occupies it because, of course, we control that as well on the system, and we can alert your electronic detection response system that this looks like you're under attack here.
Wow.
And so, a couple of the leading vendors are CrowdStrike and Defender, and they've actually adapted this. And it turns out they have a hard time seeing like the virtualization layer with software alone. And there's some things that we can actually alert them to bring up that confidence and shut down those attacks.
We're almost out of time, Matt, but before we wrap up, the other week we did focus on remote management, including what Intel calls active management technology. Is this related to the security pillar?
It is. So we've been talking about protecting and detecting. The third piece is if there is a breach, how do you correct that? Okay. And so you may need to go into a deeper level of the system to correct that. And that means possibly going into the BIOS, possibly doing a full recovery, which might mean, hey, we have to boot from a different device. We have to do a recovery from a Pixie boot. That's normally things that you would have to get hands-on physical access to the system. And with the AMT capability, you can actually do that remotely.
Yeah. Which is handy as a lot of people are working remotely, this whole hybrid sort of movement, right?
Yeah. And in a security attack, speed is essential. You got to resolve that as quickly as possible.
Good point. What's the one takeaway, Matt, for IT pros listening and, considering Intel vPro when it comes to security?
So vPro is the most comprehensive security platform, and you should be speccing vPro both for today's security challenges and tomorrow's. If your antivirus or electronic detection response vendor is not already taking advantage of Intel's threat detection technology, ask them why, challenge them, and bring in our help to get them along the path to develop that and to recognize those signals that are coming from the CPU to better protect yourself.
The call to action is intel.ca/IT heroes. It's awesome. Again, you can be the IT hero of your organization. Thank you so much, Matt Harrison. Really great to chat with you. Thanks for your time and your expertise.
Likewise, great talking to everyone.